afternoon, members of parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media, visitors in the public tribune. Welcome to the continuation of the urgent public meeting number 13 of today. This meeting is of the parliamentary year 2021-2022. And today is November 23rd, 2022. It is good to note that this meeting is a continuation of the meeting which started and was adjourned during the parliamentary year 2021-2022. At this time, I want to give a special welcome to the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication, Mr. Omar Otley, and his support staff. We have established a quorum of 8 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. I have received notice of absence from the member Melissa Gums, and it's now time for notifications. Does any member have a notification? I see none. We have an agenda. We have as agenda point for this public meeting matters surrounding dismissals at the Princess Juliana International Airport and the situation regarding the air traffic controllers. We go over to the agenda point. This meeting is a continuation of the discussion which started on April 1st, 2022, during which the then Minister of TIAT, Mr. Roger Lawrence, gave a presentation on the subject matter. Following the speakers list, members of parliament posed questions to the minister in the first round, and the minister provided the answers to the questions posed in that first round. Speakers in that meeting were MPs Heilige Martin, Westcott Williams, Solange Duncan, Christophe Emmanuel, George Pantoflet, Angelique Rumu, MP Melissa Gums, and MP Hyacinth Richardson. The meeting then continued with the second round of questions by members of parliament in accordance with the speakers list. It was agreed upon with the then Minister of TIAT, Mr. Roger Lawrence, that the answers to the questions posed in the second round would also be provided to Parliament in writing, pending the continuation of this meeting. The meeting was again adjourned to allow the Minister time to prepare the answers to the questions posed in the second round. On April 11, 2022, Parliament received the answers to the questions posed in the second round in writing. This document is registered as incoming document 768 of the parliamentary year 2021-2022 and is dated April 11, 2022 and can be found on the P drive of Parliament. Hence, today, the continuation of this urgent public meeting. At this time, I give the floor to the Minister of TIAT, Mr. Omar Otley, to answer the questions the members of Parliament posed in the second round. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good day again to the honorable members of Parliament. I put my other cap on now as Minister of TIAT as I answer the questions that were submitted on April 11, 2022 to the members of Parliament. Yeah. Before I start though, as Minister of TIAT, I would like to say congratulations to Country St. Martin. This is our first day of 6 ships at the port. It is definitely a good feeling. This is something that we have been striving and working for We have over 5 to 6 new calls that will be coming to St. Martin for the season that have never been. So as promised, it'll be an amazing season. Bookings are 100 to 120% on all cruises to St. Martin. So this is definitely a good sign to come. Without further ado, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to dive into the questions. First question by MP Helga Martin. Did the supervisory board for the operating and holding company take into account that the COO had permission from the then holding company management to submit all papers? The court has made a decision on the entire matter, which includes the question above. When is the end date of the 3 supervisory board directors of PGIAE? The 4 members on the board of the PGIAE retired respectively in July and August 2022. Did the current holding company managing director at any time contacted the former managing director of PGIAH board members or dismiss the CEO for comments on any concern and on the dossier? The decision has been made by the judge, which addressed the question above. In January 2022, which company conducted a forensic audit? Forensic Services Caribbean, Ben Van Leeuwen, PGIAH, an independent review of the validity of the findings was done. I move to the question of MP Sarah Westcott Williams. Formally, a minister would be appointed as shareholder representative. The Council of Ministers would hold most of itself. In other words, the ones acting as shareholder is the Council of Ministers. Contact person. What is meant by this? Contact person is the minister who holds the government-owned company in his or her portfolio. He or she is a spokesperson at first point of contact for the company and the Council of Ministers. He or she can also be mandated to handle certain matters on behalf of the shareholder. No formal delegation to ministers. Delegation or mandate can be granted with the approval from the shareholder, which is the Council of Ministers. At present, there is no formal mandate. What is Mr. Hyman's position now? Fired or suspended? The service agreement has been terminated. What were we seeking to establish with the forensic investigation? To conduct an independent investigation to all facts, document, and this was done by PGIAH, which falls under their competence. What does a shareholder of PGIAH/minister, what are you waiting to hear about? What are we looking for? It's either right or wrong. What was done? As Minister of TIAT, I comply with the Articles of Incorporation of both companies. I am committed to the Corporate Governance Code, which cites an arm's length approach. Number 6, board members being appointed and the way that the 3 PJIAH were appointed. Is this policy of government to appoint board members? Answer. At the present moment, there is no policy on how board members are to be recruited. The National Ordinance Corporate Governance is taken into account when appointing supervisory board members. Number 7, what was motivation for the apologies, or could the info be shared responsibly across the board? PJIAE is accountable to PJIAH, and PJIAH is accountable to the shareholders. Apologies were given for not informing the shareholders, Council of Ministers, about the dismissal and other information not provided in a timely fashion. What did the government think? What did the government think of this for getting and proving info, a oops moment, providing info, a oops moment. We believe that all those charged with governance, shareholder, supervisory board, and management board should be aligned, at least on all key matters and decisions. What has Minister said? Where do we go from here? As Minister, as mentioned, we are looking into all possible scenarios to safeguard PGIA reputation and its stakeholders, as deemed a priority of the entire Council of Ministers. I move to the questions of MP Emmanuel. When did Keith Franco start his new function? Keith Franco started March 9, 2022. What factors went into Keith Franco's selection? PGIAH ran an ad in the Daily Herald during September 27th and the 30th of 2021. Mr. Franco applied on October 5th. He was interviewed by the full board on October 19th via Teams. He was presented to the Council of Ministers on October 5th, 2028. PGIAH board indicated that there have been 3 qualified applicants out of 4. The preferred candidate retracted by email on November 1st. After careful consideration, the second preferred candidate was Mr. Franco. The articles of incorporation are straightforward. A director shall resign at least at the conclusion of his fiscal year in which he achieved his 60th birthday, unless the general shareholders meeting agrees otherwise. Article 7.5, it is possible for Parliament to acquire a copy of the agenda items and meeting minutes for the general shareholders meeting to designate Mr. Franco as Managing Director. Letter, October 25th, consideration for Article 7, Sub 5, and October 28th, sent to the Council of Ministers. See letter, Prime Minister, on behalf of the Council of Ministers, dated December 6, 2021, to CGC, referring to Article 7, Sub 5. Hence, the decision of the Council of Ministers was to appoint for 1 year. Is Mr. Franco a part-time or full-time employee? The position is a part-time function as advertised. Was Mr. Franco given instructions as his first assignment to get rid of Mr. Hyman? No instructions was given to Mr. Franco. Is Mr. Franco familiar with the dossier? Yes, he is. He received it on March 9, 2022. Mr. Franco, as a new Managing Director of the PJIAH, did he express his own thoughts on the dossier? No, not to COM or to me as Minister, or my predecessor, Mr. Lawrence. Did the newly appointed Managing Director, Keith Franco, at any point contact the former Managing Director, Dexter Dunshaw? No, not based on my knowledge. Was Mr. Hyman questioned about the dossier by the PJIAH Managing Director, Mr. Franco? Not to my knowledge. Has Mr. Franco contacted PJIAH previous Managing Director to inquire about the concerns on any action taken by him, Mr. Dunshaw? No, not to my knowledge. Is the Council of Ministers or PGIAH in possession of a copy of the judgment in the GEBE and Daniel's case involving leakage to third parties? No, not to my knowledge. Who has the authority to terminate the Managing Director of PJIAE? The General Shareholders Meeting of PGIAE, based on Article 8, Paragraph 2, Articles of Incorporation. What overwhelming evidence is there to dismiss Mr. Hyman? The matter is between employer and employee, and there has been a court decision on it.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. I keep forgetting this public meeting. Have the minister updated the answers based on recent developments?
There has been a lot of, from previous submitted, there has been a lot of no comments answers that came directly from the shareholder. So I put it to be a bit more respectful and say not based on my knowledge. And where there was no comments, I just referred to the court verdict that has already been sent. But I didn't change any answers. I just personally didn't like the fact that it was a lot of no comments. Thank you. Was the dismissal based on Mr. Hyman's arrest? I don't know. Again, hiring and firing is the responsibility of PGIAH. Was the proposed dismissal on December based on leakage of information? I don't know. Again, hiring and firing is responsibility of PGIAH, and there is a court verdict. When did information leakage become a basis for Mr. Hyman's dismissal? Also, MP, if you, through you, Mr. Chair, if you would like, we would have this version sent to the members of Parliament. Okay. When did information leakage become the basis for Mr. Hyman's dismissal? Again, I am not aware of. Hiring and firing responsibility of PGIAH, and members are actually referred to the court verdict. Are you, the Minister of TIAT, and Mr. Franco aware that on May 20th, 2022, Mr. Hyman sent a letter indicating the anticipation collusion between Clarence Derby and Brian Mingo to bring trump-up allegations against Mr. Hyman? Me personally, I'm not aware. Based on the other answers as well as provided, the minister said he was not aware. The SBOD abuse of authority and a dissatisfied CEO have been working together to make false accusation against Mr. Hyman, informed PGIAH Managing Director, then Mr. Doncha, of this letter dated May 8, 2020. I am not aware of this. Did PGIAH notify the COM or you, the TIAT minister, on the planned meeting on March 14, 2022, which the sole purpose of dismissing the COO? Yes or no? An email was sent dated February 25, 2022 to the Prime Minister and the then Minister of TIAT, stating an extraordinary general shareholder meeting will be called on March 14, 2022. The sole agenda point of the dismissal of Mr. Hyman. A response to that email was sent to PGIAH on March 7th, advising to postpone the meeting until proper assessment of the information that was still pending at the time could be made. Does Mr. Hyman's service agreement include a return guarantee clause? His right to return to the company falls under the auspice of PGIAE board. Can you send to Gary? Where is the investigation report and who conducted it that Mr. Hyman should be fired? That was answered as it was an internal matter. Clarence Derby, while being the general manager of the towers at Muller Bay, is one of the persons named in the Enya case where from 2008 to 2018, Clarence Derby collected from Enya. The original answer was we could not comment, and I stated that Mr. Derby is no longer a board member of PGIAE. Does PGIAE Airport have a whistleblowing policy in place? Yes, it do. How is the person reporting irregularities or concerns protected? By means of email, letter, calls. They all remain confidential. Is there a whistleblowing policy applicable to members of the management board? Yes, there is. What was the purpose for the Supervisory Board of Directors letter in July 2020, 1 month after the dossier was submitted to COM and Parliament referring to leakage? This cannot be commented on. Did the Forensic Caribbean Service contact the RST for information on the investigation? According to the holding, this could not be commented on. Did the chairlady of the Supervisory Board, Camilla, contact the OM office for information on the investigation? If yes, did the OM office share and provide any documents with the chairlady? According to the holding company, this information could not be provided to my person. Why do you think the lawyer representing Mr. Hyman could release this information if the RFT or the OM did not provide the information about the investigation? This information was not made available to me, therefore I'm not able to respond on it. How many investigations is FCS engaged to carry out, and by whom? This information was not made available to me upon my request. How did the SBOD conclude that Mr. Hyman's leak of information while receiving authorization from the PGIAH director? The SBOD of holding has not provided this information, therefore I am not able to answer. What is so gross about the actions taken by Mr. Hyman? The suggested gross actions taken by Mr. Hyman was not provided to me. Have the SBOD responded within a reasonable time to the letters and concerns raised by Mr. Hyman? How, when, and what was done? I am not aware of the letter, the time frame, or what was done. This information was also not provided. Did Mr. Hyman's legal representative and chairlady exchange lots of emails? Mr. Hyman's arrest in October 2021, I'm not aware of this exchange. That information was again not provided. Are you aware of Mr. Hyman's frequent letters to the SBOD? This information was not provided to my predecessor. Since the agreement and launch of Skipple Group in 2019, what benefits were observed? Project expertise, negotiation with the bondholders, resource part of the PMU team, advisory for the operations, CFO and financial advisory, HR advisory, support of the AAA with audits and SMS, safety management system, contributed to the assembly and became a part of the Dutch Caribbean Airport Association. When will Skipple agreement come to an end? Based on my knowledge, Skipple termination date is based upon completion of the airport terminal. Is appointing a local counterpart CFO still in the works? Based on my understanding, the counterpart for CFO is currently advertised and the process is being managed by the BDO. Who is in charge of the CFO counterpart selection? Based on my understanding, this is not a statutory position, therefore PGIA SBOD, Supervisory Operating, is responsible for counterpart CFO selection, which is currently ongoing. Do you believe the actions taken by PGIAH Managing Director to terminate Mr. Hyman on the recommendation of PGIAE Supervisory Board of Directors is a form of retaliation against Mr. Hyman? I'm unable to respond on this, as this is an opinion. Who submitted the documentation to the RST office to start the investigation into the post-Hurricane Irma fencing repair? I was not given the information on who submitted this. did the PJIAE Supervisory Board of Directors report any known or suspect irregularities in the financial audits of 2017, 18, 19, 20? This information was not provided. If any irregularities were found. Does the COM have a draft plan or instruction to amend the article of incorporation and current structure of PJIAH to make it purely an administrative role that oversees the assets? This is being done by the implementation team, I-team, based on corporate governance improvement plan dated June 10th, 2020. This plan is based on a recommendation made by the World Bank February 2019. Do you believe Mr. Hyman's dismissal was made in a reasonable and equitable manner? I am not privy to the reasons given. The matter was heard in court and all parties adhered to the decision. Are there any corporate governance regulations in place to protect managing directors from being victimized? Managing directors have service level agreements in the service level agreement protect them from such victimizations. Employees had protests against Mr. Mingo for his prior performance in the weeks and months leading up to the PGIAH in 2021. But Hyman sang praises to Mr. Hyman. At the same time, employees and the St. Martin Parliament complimented Mr. Hyman for his leadership when Hurricane Irma wreaked havoc in 2027. Mr. Hyman has his rights, went to court decision is public knowledge. All of the parties apparently agreed with the court decision. Is it planned for PGIAE to apply for a $90 million loan? The loan will be done with regional lenders and will have the positive impact on lending World Bank EIB loan due to lower debt services. Was the dossier thoroughly reviewed by the Council of Ministers? I was made aware of the minister was made aware of the existence of the document in January 2022. It is therefore not possible to answer the question if the Council of Ministers previously reviewed the dossier thoroughly. Why did COM take 2 years to examine the dossier? I am not able to answer this question. Do the shareholder representative Minister of TIAT believe that if the dossier had been evaluated by the COM 2 years ago, the outcome of Mr. Hyman's case would have been different today? I do not have the mandate as shareholders representative. Is the Council of Ministers and the Parliament of St. Martin, who holds 100% of the corporation, considered third parties by supervisory board? I cannot answer for the supervisory board or how they view the Council of Members or Parliament. How does this affect the 2012 loan indentures with the creditors if the Council of Ministers and the Parliament of St. Martin are considered third parties? In 2012, the 2012 indenture is a commercial loan, while the 2009 World Bank loan is funded from a government and lend agreement with preferential terms. There will be no negative impact on the existing loan from the government. The 2012 bond will be redeemed. What is Mr. Mingo's credit card spending status for the year 2019-2021? We cannot comment. This is an internal matter, but as conclusion of the review, there were no irregularities found. PGIAE also had a credit card policy implemented. Is a forensic audit on the problems credit card being conducted by an independent or impartial company? The matter is a responsibility of the SBOD Supervisory Board of Operating Company. In 2019, did the World Bank perform a review of the Princess Juliana International Airport entities? Yes, a review was performed. Is the Council of Ministers reforming PGIAH oversight or PGIAE? This is being done by the implementation team, I-team, based on corporate governance improvement plan. As stated before, the NRPB requested the Council of Ministers to establish a task force, corporate governance. This task force transitioned into the I-team. Is it true that in the new steps, Operational Supervisory Board will be in charge of recruiting, dismissing managing director and the supervisory board member? The work of the I-team is in process and has not been finalized. Is the recommendation to modify the corporate structure of government-owned entities approved by the Council of Ministers? The Corporate Governance Improvement Plan is dated June 10, 2020. This plan, again, as stated, is recommended by the World Bank. Can the COM submit a copy of Corporate Governance Report to the Parliament of St. Martin? I'm able to provide a confidential document in a public setting. The suggestion providing clarity on the matter can be done during closed door. Why was Mr. Hyman dismissed from his role as COO of PGIAE? The shareholder meeting of March 14, 2022 terminated the service agreement with approval of the PGIAH Supervisory Board on recommendation of PGIAE Supervisory Board. And there is also the court verdict. If one of the reasons was because he so-called leaked information, please provide government's position on this. I'm not able to provide an opinion on this. However, the court has taken its decision and government adheres to the position. The former director of PGIAH, Mr. Dexter Duncher, has said in writing that he told Mr. Hyman to take the information to the shareholder. There's no comment on this. Refer to the court verdict. Was Mr. Hyman also dismissed for failure to meet professional obligations? This was taken up in the court verdict. If yes, please explain how he failed to do so. What reasons he gave for being unable to perform his duties? I'm unable to say at this moment. The answer was not provided. Was Mr. Hyman given the opportunity to be heard in late December 2021? Yes, Mr. Hyman was heard with the council in December 2021. What kind of audit did the holding board of the airport commission as it regards to the dismissal of Mr. Hyman? I refer to the court verdict. Was the audit commission based on the information of Mr. Hyman provided to the holding board? The information was not given to me by the holding board upon request. When was the decision made to dismiss Mr. Hyman? On whose recommendation? The shareholder of PGIAE met in February and in March in accordance with the Articles of Corporation, and he was notified of the dismissal. Was the shareholder / the government notified or involved in the decision? If no, please provide government's position on this. An email was sent as stated February 25th, 2022 to the Prime Minister to hold an extraordinary COM to be called on March 14, 2022, the sole agenda of the dismissal of Mr. Hyman. A response was given on March 7, advising to postpone. Did the holding board inform shareholders of this decision? If no, please give government's position. I refer back to what was said. And of course, speaking for myself, I had no knowledge of the dismissal. Was advice sought from Corporate Governance Council? If no, please explain why the board of PGIAE and PGIAH didn't request such. Based on my understanding, no advice was sought by the Corporate Governance Council. Was the Corporate Governance Council informed of the decision? No, CGC was not advised. Has the Corporate Governance Council, CGC Task Force, the Corporate Governance Task Force given the opinion on Mr. Hyman's dismissal? No, the I-team has not given an opinion. It is not a matter within their scope of work. Was the opinion of the Corporate Governance Task Force sought before dismissing Mr. Hyman? No, the opinion of the task force was not sought. It is not within their scope of work. What activities has the Corporate Governance Task Force carried out at PGIAA since installation? The draft amendment of the National Ordinance, Corporate Governance, proposed amendments to Corporate Governance Code, draft articles for PGIAE and PGIAH, draft profiles for boards of PGIAE and PGIAH, draft recruitment procedures, selections and criteria of board positions, appointment of corporate secretary. What does Mr. Hyman's working agreement with the PGIAA as a part of the management board say about his function, and if he's only a suspect in a legal case? I do not have their working agreements to make comment on that. Is Mr. Hyman not entitled to a basic reassignment to his previous function? It is not clear what previous function until any investigation is completed. If yes, please explain why this is not done. It is not clear what investigation you are referring to, and in any case, there is a labor contract that has been now legally dissolved. Which article is working agreement with PGIAE gives the SBOD of PGIAE the authority to outright dismiss him on allegations? I do not know the content of his working agreement. Has the Skipple Group and or Bezerka been notified by the SBOD of the PGIAE or by the management board of PGIA of Hyman's dismissal? I do not know whether they were informed or not. Considering their interference and threats in the past over PGIA internal management issues, has the Skipple Group issued an opinion or communicated a communication of any sort? I'm not aware of this. The Minister of TIAT mentioned that there are communication issues between the government and the company that must be addressed. How is the government planning to address? We believe that all those charged with governance, be it the shareholder, supervisory board, and the managing board, should be aligned at least on one key matter. At least on key matters. I move to the questions of MP Richardson. Was the forensic done on any other person that worked? Any other person that is working on the holding company of the airport? All persons working on the holding company has been screened by the VDSM. Would like to see the forensic report. We are not in possession of the report. Those were the two questions I had from Mr. Hyson Richardson. Mr. Chair, it brings me to the end.
Thank you for the answers provided. Minister, I look now to the members of parliament. Does any member have a point of clarification? Is it up? Oh, okay. MP Westcott Williams.
Mr. Chairman, thank you and a good afternoon once again. Good afternoon to my colleagues, a good afternoon to the Minister and his entourage. Mr. Chairman, as you and the Minister indicated, these answers have been sent to Parliament a while ago. And so my first question is, what has been the reason for the delay in having this meeting with the answers? That's my first question. What was it that the minister was not able before to come in person and present? Well, so what was really the issue? Because it makes it extremely difficult to understand.
Is that a clarification?
Yes, yes. So I don't have to, how would I ask for a clarification without explaining what I'm asking to be clarified? How
No,
would
no,
I ask for?
I'm saying I have the same concern in terms of 7 months lapse. I too would
I'm
want to know.
not finished with my,
But the clarification
I'm getting to
is
it.
for an answer provided.
I'm getting to it, Mr. Chairman, and
Okay.
if you allow me to finish,
Thank
then
you.
you would see that I am asking it for
All
it
right.
to be clarified. As I was saying, so we get these answers, and the minister has on numerous occasions in response to, but firstly, let me back up. We are expecting the slightly adjusted answers. Yet, in the minister's responses, I'm hearing these things have not been made available. They can be commented on, etc., etc. So I want to know from the minister if he can clarify, please, when he says this information has not been made available, am I to understand that the minister / the government has requested of, firstly, the holding company of the airport to provide information, and has the holding said, we cannot give the shareholder this information? That's my question. So to the answers can be commented on, was not made available, has the minister and the government, because when we talk minister, it is not necessarily the minister Otley, it is the minister of TIAT. So whether it's the one before this one or the one to come, my question is, has the holding said in response to questions posed by Parliament via the minister that they can't give the shareholder information? Is my first question. Can the minister provide a timeline of Mr. Hyman's termination? A timeline. When the minister says in his responses, and I would like it to be clarified, please, that all parties adhered to the court verdict, what am I to understand? That both parties just read the court verdict, and nothing else happened, no discussion between parties, nothing, no settlement, no understanding. What do I understand under parties agreed to adhere to the court verdict? With respect to the task force that was charged with doing several things, are any of the productions mentioned by the minister from the hands of the task force, are any of these completed and, where necessary, approved by the government and or shareholder? So these, all the things, all the protocols and the new articles of incorporation, etc., etc., any of these productions, have they been completely finalized and, where necessary, agreed to by the government, is my next question. Is the minister aware of, given this answer of can't comment on and not made available. Is the minister aware of any other court cases and or investigations taking place against the airport? Let me don't say whether it's holding, just generally speaking, against PJIA, so the Princess Juliana International Airport. Can the minister also, given the answers that we received in terms of the minister not having received the information and the minister not being there, etc., can the minister also provide a timeline with respect to this now infamous dossier and the handling by the government? When was it received? What did the government do? Has it just been put aside and considered handled? Was it, as we would say in Dutch, a takey end? Was it just for information's sake? So what could we, from the government's perspective, not the minister in particular, because this minister might not have been there, was not there, in fact, during the entire process. So can, from the government, the parliament receive a timeline on the infamous dossier handling? I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Westcott Williams. The next points of clarifications request comes from MP Heiliger Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a pleasant good afternoon to everyone. I only have about 3 clarifications, and the first one is regarding the response I received, question 4 from the minister through you, Mr. Chair, regarding the Forensic Service Caribbean. It states that an independent review of the validity of the findings. I'm not sure. Is it possible through you, Mr. Chair, for the minister to provide me with what the review and the findings were, and was this forensic audit done after his dismissal, before his dismissal, just to see clarity on it? And if it was after his dismissal, was it the findings of this they used to dismiss him, just for clarification round? And if possible, I don't know if it's possible to share this document with us. And then the next clarification I have is regarding question 8 from MP Westcott Williams, the answer from that regarding what government think of its forgetting it, and what did government think of this forgetting of providing info, the oops moment. Here, the answer was somewhere along the lines of that we would, you expressed disappointment and looking forward, looking more into the matter. What actions or procedures have been put in place to improve the communication between holding and COM? And lastly, my last clarification is it possible to get a breakdown or a better understanding of the whistleblowing policy of PGIA? What are the rights of the employee or manager in this case, where the whistleblowing policy, in general, I just wanted for everyone to understand a breakdown of the whistleblowing policy, just a little synopsis of what it entails. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Heiliger Martin. The floor now goes to MP Rolando Bryson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon once again. Mr. Chairman, I took note of the answer from the minister in regards to the question about the court case that took place. And the minister in his response did say that that is one of the things, let's say, addressed in the court case. Mr. Chairman, this is a public meeting of Parliament, so we have people watching. Not everyone is going to read verdicts. The verdict is in Dutch, etc. Can the minister please clarify what role or what effect or what weight did the fact that the documents were leaked in accordance with what the judge is saying, what effect did that have in the judge's decision to dismiss or to approve the dismissal of Mr. Hyman? So what did the judge comment on the fact that these documents were, in his words, I believe, leaked to Parliament, breach of confidentiality? What weight and effect did that ultimately have in the dismissal of Mr. Hyman? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP Bryson. Minister, you've had a number of clarification requests. Do you need to adjourn for a few minutes, or are you ready to?
If permitted, I'll ask for 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Meeting adjourned until 3 o'clock. 2:30. Meeting adjourned until 2:30.